Every day, Lila had to pretend she didn't see the spirits that walked past her. This wasn't something she chose. She was born with it. Some people might call it a gift, but for Lila, it felt more like a curse. Seeing spirits scared her. It was something she couldn't stop, no matter how hard she tried. Lila had learned to live with this strange ability. She stayed quiet about it and did her best to ignore the spirits, but everything changed when her best friend, Ella, was about to marry one of them. This spirit wasn't a friendly one. It was an evil soul, and Lila knew it. She couldn't ignore this. Lila's life had always been unusual, even from the day she was born. When she was born, she cried. That was normal, but she didn't stop crying. She cried all night. The nurses told her parents that something was wrong. This isn't normal, they said. Her mother and father were very worried. They loved their baby girl, but they didn't understand why she was crying so much. They took her home, hoping she would calm down, but that night, Lila cried even louder. She didn't stop, not even for a moment. Her parents didn't know what to do. They thought maybe she was sick. The next day, they rushed her to the hospital. The doctors checked her and said, "Your baby is fine. She's healthy." But her parents didn't believe it. How could a healthy baby cry so much? They tried everything. They visited other doctors, even traditional healers. Everyone said the same thing, "Your baby is normal." But Lila didn't seem normal. She cried every day, all day. She would only stop crying to eat or sleep, then she'd start crying again. Her parents were tired and confused. They wanted to help their baby, but they didn't know how. This was how Lila's early life went: cry, eat, sleep, and cry again. Her parents wondered if this was a sign that their daughter was different, but they had no idea just how different Lila really was. By the time Lila turned 7, her parents noticed something strange. They would walk into her room and find her talking to the air. When they asked, "Who are you talking to?" she would smile and say, "My friend." At first, they thought it was just an imaginary friend, but her behavior became harder to explain. Sometimes they would find her laughing, her eyes fixed on an empty corner of the room. Other times, she would be crying, hugging herself tightly. When they asked why she was upset, Lila would only say, "My friend is sad." Her parents grew worried. They decided to take her to a psychiatrist. The doctor spent hours with Lila, asking her many questions. When she spoke to her parents, she said, "Your daughter is perfectly normal. She has a vivid imagination." But her parents weren't convinced. What they saw in their daughter felt far from normal. Lila was different. She loved watching horror movies. While other children screamed at the sight of spirits, Lila leaned forward, fascinated. One day during movie night, she pointed at the screen and said, "I've seen that ghost before." Her parents froze, unsure of what to say. They laughed nervously and told her to stop joking. Lila spent most of her time indoors, avoiding other children. She didn't need anyone else because she had her friend. She gave her friend a name, Zephyr. "If I had a sister, that's what I'd call her," Lila said with a smile. Zephyr smiled at her, saying, "That's so sweet." To Lila, she wasn't just a friend, she was family. Every time they saw Lila smiling at the air or crying into her hands, her parents wondered, what was their daughter really seeing? Lila's parents grew more concerned as time went on. They didn't like that their daughter spent all her time alone, talking to her invisible friend. She rarely went outside and didn't play with the other children in the neighborhood. Her parents decided they needed to do something. They hoped that making friends with someone her age might change her. Their solution was Ella, the neighbor's child. Ella was a cheerful, lively girl who always seemed full of energy. She was the complete opposite of Lila, who preferred the quiet comfort of her room. Ella's parents agreed to let her visit Lila every day after school, hoping their daughter could bring Lila out of her shell. When Ella first showed up at Lila's house, Lila wasn't happy. She didn't want to play with anyone. She didn't understand why her parents thought this was a good idea. "I don't need friends," she told her mother. Her mother sighed. "Lila, you need real friends. Give Ella a chance." Reluctantly, Lila agreed to spend time with Ella. At first, their playdates were awkward. Lila barely spoke, and Ella did all the talking. "Let's play hide and seek," Ella would say, but Lila would shake her head. "How about we draw pictures?" Ella would suggest, but Lila wasn't interested. For days, this continued. Ella didn't give up, but Lila didn't make it easy for her. Then, one afternoon, something changed. They were sitting in Lila's room when Ella started telling a story. It was about a princess who could talk to animals and had a magical garden. Lila listened quietly at first, but as the story went on, she began to ask questions. "What happened to the princess?" she asked. "Did she save the garden?" Ella smiled. She did, but only because she trusted her magic. For the first time, Lila smiled back. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Over the next few weeks, Lila and Ella began to bond. Lila found herself laughing at Ella's silly jokes and looking forward to her visits. They played games, shared stories, and even created secret handshakes. Lila's parents were overjoyed to see their daughter opening up for the first time in years. They felt like things might be okay. But while Lila's parents saw a normal friendship forming, Lila saw something else. From the very first time she met Ella, she noticed that there was something unusual about her. Lila had always been able to see things others couldn't. She saw spirits, shadows, and strange energies that surrounded certain people. And Ella was no exception. The first thing Lila noticed was Ella's heart, or rather, the lack of it. Where there should have been a heartbeat, there was only a glowing golden light. It shone brightly, almost blinding Lila. The first time she saw it, she blinked, thinking her eyes were playing tricks on her. But no matter how many times she looked, it was always there, a soft, pulsing glow in Ella's chest. Lila didn't understand what it meant. She had seen many strange things in her life, but this was new. She didn't know why Ella's heart was like this or what it meant for her. Lila decided to keep it to herself. Neither Ella nor her parents seemed to know about the golden light, and Lila didn't want to scare anyone. She didn't want to ruin the friendship that was just starting to bloom, so she said nothing. As the days turned into weeks, Lila and Ella grew closer. Lila's closest spirit friend, Zephyr, had warned her. "Don't tell Ella about me," Zephyr said one day. Lila didn't like keeping things from Ella, but Zephyr was firm. "If she knows, everything will change," Lila argued. At first, Ella was her best friend. They told each other everything. But after a long talk, Lila gave in. She promised to keep quiet. Years went by. Lila and Ella stayed close. They shared secrets, laughter, and tears. By the time they were 21, they had grown into beautiful young women. Lila, with her quiet and mysterious air, and Ella, with her loud and cheerful personality, made the perfect pair. To anyone who saw them, they looked like two normal friends. But Lila's life was far from normal. One evening, while sitting on her bed, Lila finally asked Zephyr something she had been wondering about for years. "Why are you still here? Shouldn't you be in the spirit world?" Zephyr smiled faintly. She looked sad, her usual glow dimming. "I can't leave," she said softly. "I wasn't buried after the accident. No one came for my body. I was just left there." Lila's heart sank. "What do you mean no one came for you?" she asked. "I was an orphan," Zephyr replied. "There was no one to bury me. No one to mourn me. I've been stuck here ever since." Lila didn't know what to say. She felt a mix of sadness and anger. "I'll help you," she said finally. We'll find your body and make sure you're buried properly. Zephyr's eyes lit up with hope. Do you mean that? Lila nodded. You've been there for me all these years. It's time I help you. Seeing spirits wasn't easy for Lila. It wasn't just Zephyr. Everywhere she went, she saw them. They were in the streets, in the market, even in her house. Some looked like normal people, but others were terrifying, pale, hollow-eyed, and twisted in ways that made her stomach turn. She couldn't talk to them, couldn't even look at them for too long. If she did, they might notice her, and if they noticed her. And if they noticed her, who knew what they might do? The market was the worst place. It was always crowded with both the living and the dead. Lila pretended like she couldn't see the spirits. One afternoon, Lila and Ella were walking through the market. The air was thick with the smell of spices, roasted corn, and fresh fish. Lila tried her best to focus on Ella's chatter, but she couldn't stop glancing at the faces around them. She knew many of the market's vendors weren't alive, and being surrounded by them always made her uneasy. As they passed by a stall selling ripe mangoes, a tall, handsome guy walked up to them. His name was Rian, and he was the talk of the neighborhood. Every girl liked him. No one could resist his charm, and he knew it. His smile was bright, his confidence unshakable, and the way he carried himself made people turn their heads. Rian stopped right in front of Ella. "Hey, beautiful," he said, flashing his perfect smile. "Where have you been hiding all my life?" Lila froze. Her eyes widened as she realized the truth. Rian wasn't alive. His eyes, though charming to others, looked hollow to her. She could see his true form, a spirit. "No, please," she said quickly, her voice firm. "She's not interested." Rian raised an eyebrow and smirked. "I wasn't talking to you," he said smoothly before Ella could respond. Lila stepped in front of her. "She's my friend," Lila said sharply. "And I can decide for her." Ella stared at Lila, confused. "What's wrong with you?" "Calm down," she said, turning to Rian with a shy smile. "I think he's kind of cute," she whispered. Lila's heart sank. She wanted to scream, "He's a spirit. Stay away from him," but she couldn't. Ella didn't know about her ability to see spirits, and Lila wasn't ready to tell her. Instead, she grabbed Ella's arm. "Trust me. He's not the right guy for you," she said. Ella pulled her arm away. "Why are you acting like this?" she asked, annoyed. "Are you jealous or something?" Lila shook her head, trying to stay calm. "I just don't think he's a good person," she said. It was the best excuse she could come up with. Rian smiled. "Don't worry," he said to Ella, ignoring Lila. "I'll see you around." With that, he winked and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Ella turned to Lila, her frustration clear. "Why did you do that? He seemed nice." Lila sighed, trying to find the right words. "You don't know him like I do," she said. "Just trust me on this." But Ella didn't trust her. She crossed her arms and gave Lila a sharp look. "You're just jealous," she said. "You don't want me to have someone because you're always alone." Lila's chest tightened. She wanted to yell the truth, that she was protecting Ella from something dangerous, but how could she explain that without revealing her secret? How could she make Ella understand that Rian wasn't just bad news? He was something much worse. Instead of arguing, Lila stayed quiet. She let Ella walk ahead of her, chatting away about how cute Rian was and how she hoped to see him again. Lila walked beside her, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. Her worst fear was that Ella would end up like the spirit in front of her, trapped forever. But that was a problem for another day. For now, Lila had to figure out how to keep her friend safe. And time was running out. Lara was worried. She knew that Evie might be cautious, but she wouldn't stop her. No one would. That night, as the moon hung low in the sky, Zane stood in the shadows, his mind alive with plans. He could feel the whispers of the spirits from the other realm, faint but persistent. They were waiting for him, urging him on. "I won't fail," Zane said aloud, his voice cold and steady. "The key will be mine." He thought of Isla, her bright smile, her innocent laugh. She had no idea what loving him would cost her. She didn't know that her heart was both her greatest gift and her greatest danger. Darren didn't give up. Day after day, he returned to Isla, his charm turned up to full power. He always seemed to appear at the perfect moment, flashing his dazzling smile and saying all the right things. "You look even more beautiful today," he would say, or, "I was thinking about you all night." His words were smooth, and his confidence was unshakable. Isla couldn't help but feel flattered. She had never met anyone like him before, so bold, so charming, so attentive. Yet deep down, something held her back. Every time she started to feel her heart soften, she would hear Lara's warnings echoing in her mind. "He's not good for you, Isla," Lara said for what felt like the 100th time. Her voice was firm, but her eyes were filled with concern. "You don't know who he really is." Isla frowned, frustrated. "Why do you keep saying that, Lara? What has he done to you?" "It's not about me," Lara replied. "I'm telling you, there's something off about him. Please, just be careful." Isla shook her head, annoyed. "You're just jealous, Lara. You don't want me to be happy because you're always alone." Lara's heart ached at those words, but she didn't show it. She couldn't tell Isla the truth, that Zane wasn't human. That he was a ghost. "I just want to protect you," Lara said softly. "You're my best friend." "Well, it doesn't feel like it," Isla snapped. "I'm old enough to make my own decisions. Stop trying to control me." Zane knew Lara was a problem. Her constant interference was keeping Isla from fully trusting him. He could see it in Lara's eyes, the hesitation, the doubt. Isla wanted to fall for him, but Lara's words kept pulling her back. Still, Zane was patient. He had waited centuries to find the key. He could wait a little longer. Each day, he found new ways to win Isla over. He would bring her small gifts, flowers, bracelets, even her favorite snacks. He listened to her talk about her dreams, laughed at her jokes, and made her feel like the most important person in the world. He played his part perfectly. Little by little, he could feel her walls starting to crack. But Lara wasn't giving up either. She watched Zane's every move, her eyes sharp and suspicious. Whenever he got too close to Isla, she found a way to interrupt. "We're going to be late," she would say, pulling Isla away. She couldn't let him get too comfortable. She was trying so hard to protect Isla, but it wouldn't matter in the end. Zane was confident that he would win. He always did. "She can't stop me," he muttered to himself. "No one can." The next day, Zane showed up at Isla's house unannounced, bringing her flowers with a sweet smile on his face. "I couldn't stop thinking about you," he said. Isla blushed, her frustration with Lara fading for a moment. "You're too much," she said with a laugh, taking the flowers. "Not enough for you," he replied smoothly. "You deserve the world." Lara, watching from a distance, felt a wave of dread. She could see the light in Isla's chest flickering, responding to Zane's words. It was subtle, but it was there. Zane was getting closer to his goal, and Lara didn't know how much longer she could hold him back. That night, as Isla lay in bed, she thought about Zane. His words played over and over in her mind, and for the first time, she wondered if Lara was wrong. Could it be possible that Zane really cared about her? Lara stayed up late, staring at the ceiling, trying to think of a way to protect Isla. She knew the danger was growing, and she couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Isla, however, was growing tired of Lara's meddling. "Why can't you just let me be happy?" she asked one evening after Zane had left. "He's a good guy." "No, he's not," Lara replied, her voice trembling. She wanted to scream the truth, to tell Isla everything. But she knew she couldn't. Not yet. "Then who is he, huh?" Isla demanded. "What do you know about him that I don't?" Lara hesitated. "I can't explain it," she said finally. "But you have to trust me." One quiet afternoon, Lara was sitting in her room, staring out the window, lost in thought. She had been feeling uneasy lately. Isla had been acting distant. Before she could delve deeper into her worries, a sudden loud knock on her door startled her. She rushed to open it and found Isla standing there, smiling brightly. In her hand was a small, fancy-looking envelope. "I came to invite you to my wedding," Isla said excitedly, handing Lara the envelope. Lara froze. Her heart sank. "What?" she whispered, her voice barely loud enough to hear. "I'm getting married to Zane," Isla said happily. "It's happening in 2 days." 2 days. Lara repeated, her voice shaking. She couldn't believe it. How could Isla plan such a big thing and not tell her best friend? Isla grinned. "I wanted to surprise you," she said. "You'll come, right?" Lara nodded weakly, unable to find the right words. After Isla left, Lara closed the door and leaned against it, her mind spinning. Her stomach felt sick as she thought about Zane. What did he want from Isla? Why was the wedding so rushed? That night, as the house became quiet, Alaric appeared. Lara quickly explained everything about Zane, the wedding, how little time there was, and her growing fear. Alaric listened quietly, her face dark with worry. "I understand now why he's in such a hurry," Alaric said. "He's close to getting what he wants." "What does he want from her?" Lara asked, though deep down, she already knew. "The light in Isla's chest is the key," Alaric explained. "It's what he's been looking for all this time. If he takes it, she'll die." Lara's heart felt like it stopped. "But Isla hasn't fully opened her heart to him yet," she said quickly. "You told me that's the only way he can take it." "She hasn't yet," Alaric agreed, "but she's close. She loves him. The only reason she hasn't given him her whole heart is because you've made her doubt him a little. That doubt is the only thing keeping her alive." Lara let out a shaky breath. "So if that doubt goes away, she's gone." Alaric finished, "Yes." The room felt colder. Lara's hands shook as she tried to make sense of what she had just heard. Then Alaric spoke again, even more seriously. "There's something else you need to know," Alaric said. "If she kisses him willingly after they're married, even just once, he will still take her heart. She doesn't need to be completely in love with him for that. A kiss of the married couple is enough." Lara froze. "A kiss?" she whispered. Her mind immediately thought of the wedding. Weddings always ended with a kiss. It was sure to happen. She grabbed the wedding invitation and checked the date again. 2 days, she said aloud. "That's not enough time. How can I prepare for a wedding and not tell me?" "It wasn't her plan," Alaric said. "It was Zane's idea. He wanted to keep you out of the way because he knew you were making her doubt him." Lara clenched her fists. "How do I stop him?" she asked desperately. "There has to be a way." "There is," Alaric said, "but it won't be easy. The only way to stop him is to show his real self to Isla." "His real self?" Lara repeated. "How am I supposed to do that?" "You'll have to figure it out," Alaric said. "If she sees who he really is, the heart will send Zane to where the others were trapped." Lara felt overwhelmed. "How can I do that in just 2 days?" she asked, her voice breaking. "I don't even know where to begin." Alaric placed a ghostly hand on her shoulder. "You're stronger than you think," she said. "You'll find a way. You always do." That night, Lara couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. She had 2 days to save Isla. 2 days to stop a wedding that could take her best friend's life. She felt lost and hopeless, with too many questions and no answers. Just then, an idea struck her mind. "I know what I have to do," she whispered to herself. The night before the wedding had arrived. Everything seemed normal. The house was buzzing with excitement. Music played softly, decorations were being finalized, and Isla glowed with happiness. Lara had thought about her plan all day, clinging to the one tool she believed could work, a mirror. It was said that mirrors could reflect a person's true self, showing what lay beneath the surface. If the mirror worked as she hoped, it would expose Zane for what he really was, a demon, not a man. With trembling hands, Lara grabbed the mirror and left for Isla's house. As soon as Lara stepped through the door, Isla welcomed her with open arms. "I'm so glad you came," Isla said, her smile bright, but then her tone grew serious. "Please, Lara, don't ruin my day. I just want everything to go perfectly." Lara forced a small smile. "I won't ruin anything," she said. "I just want to show you something." "What is it?" Isla asked, her voice soft but weary. She walked inside. Lara pulled out the mirror, her heart pounding. "Just look into this mirror," she said. "It's supposed to show the truth." Isla frowned, confused but curious. She glanced at the mirror, and so did Zane, who stood nearby, watching silently. Lara held her breath, waiting for the mirror to reveal the monster hiding beneath Zane's handsome face. But to her shock, the mirror reflected Zane as a human. He looked perfect, just as he always did, charming, calm, and harmless. "What is this, Lara?" Isla asked, her voice sharp. "What are you trying to do?" Lara's face went pale. "You're supposed to see the truth in the mirror," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't know why it's not working." Isla's expression darkened. "You are such an evil friend," she snapped. "Because of your jealousy, you want to destroy my marriage." "No, that's not it." Lara pleaded. "I'm trying to protect you." But Isla wasn't listening. Her voice rose as she shouted, "You're jealous of me. Just admit it." Lila had always despised Zane from the beginning, and now, as she watched him attempt to ruin the happiest day of her life, panic surged in her chest. She couldn't lose Mia, not like this. Desperate, she leaned in close and whispered into her friend's ear, "I see spirits. Please don't tell anyone, but it's true. Zane isn't who you think he is." Mia pulled back, her eyes wide with disbelief. Then, without warning, she burst into laughter. "Spirits," she repeated loudly, her voice ringing through the room. "Instead of telling me the truth, you're making up nonsense about seeing spirits because you're jealous." For a brief moment, the room fell silent. Then, one by one, people started laughing along with her. Lila's heart sank as the sound of Mia's laughter grew louder, echoing in her ears. "Leave, Lila!" Mia shouted, her voice thick with anger and hurt. "I don't want you at my wedding. You're a terrible friend." Lila's eyes burned with unshed tears as she looked around, hoping someone would defend her. But no one did. Her gaze fell upon Zane, standing off to the side, watching the scene unfold. His lips curled into a slow, cruel smile, a silent reminder that he was winning. Lila turned and walked out of the house, her chest heavy with pain. She had tried everything, but nothing had worked. The people she had been trying to protect had laughed at her and turned their backs. As she walked through the dark streets alone, the thought of saving her friend was distant. Upon reaching her room, she found Arlo waiting for her, his ghostly form glowing faintly in the dim light. "How did it go?" Arlo asked gently. Lila threw herself onto her bed, her voice sharp and bitter. "I don't care anymore," she muttered. Let whatever happens to her happen. She doesn't want to listen to me.